I decided to make a video that I can save, not so much on my Facebook page, but on my YouTube channel. So, long time no see. And for those of you that know, thank you all for your prayers yesterday. It was bad. It was a really bad day. Since Jose's passing, it's been kind of hit and miss. I thought, I would have these moments. They didn't last super long, and then I'd be fine for a few hours or a day or two, and then it would hit again for a little bit. And anyway, but yesterday it was like crying all day, like all day. Grief is like, it's just so bizarre. But anyway, so I did a thing. So the Friday after, a week after Jose died, some friends of mine, Brenda and Catherine, were like, hey, you're coming up to Port St. Lucie and you are getting your hair done. We found a woman and yada, yada, yada. So here I am. I went short. They call it a lob. It's like a long bob. So that's that. Anyway, it did make me feel better, to be honest. So anyway, so I really haven't spoken to you all since the day Jose died. And figured I'd go over that real quick. So I was at school and I got the phone call, and the nurse was like, we're unable to get a blood pressure on your husband. We're having a difficult time finding his pulse. He's been unresponsive all morning. Now they're calling me around noon. So they were just like, he's been unresponsive all morning. And so we think it's time. You should probably call your family. He'll probably pass this evening. So, of course, I was an absolute mess. I wanted to call people, but I couldn't even. I've never in my life cried so hard. I mean, tears just like fell out of my eyes. They just fell. Couldn't breathe. I was like trying to drive on the highway doing 80 miles an hour because I was thinking, man, I want to be there, And I couldn't even get into the hospital. I had to sit in my car for probably another 20 minutes to half an hour because I couldn't breathe. I was crying so hard. I'm like, how am I going to tell the people at the desk who I'm here to see? I can't breathe. I can't talk. I can't stop crying. And then when I thought I was all together, I got up to the security desk and I still can't talk. I'm just like handing him my license, hoping, he knew me because I was there every day for a month or 2 months. So I'm like, hopefully when he pulls up my license, he'll be like, oh, this is where she's going, And when I got there, they had said that he hasn't been responding at all to the nurses. But when I walked in, I was like, hey, baby, and immediately he opened up his eyes and tried to look at me. And the nurse was like in shock. She's like, oh my gosh, we have tried talking to him. We tried moving his arms. We tried, everything to get a response. And I said, yep, that's the way it's been since day one, So that was encouraging. And then by that time, his daughters had come, his sister, his mother, his brother, Tino, and everybody was there. We were all there. But there came a time about 2 hours or so prior to him passing, we could tell the pain was getting worse because he was scrunching his face. He was having difficulty breathing. Anyway, so we could tell it was time. But anyway, so for 2 hours, his eyes were rolled back in his head and he literally didn't even move. Didn't move. Wasn't responding to me anymore. So I knew So at one point I excused myself for a minute. I just tell the girls, I'm like, you know what, I'm going to use the bathroom out in the hall. I said, I'll be back in a minute, So I went into the bathroom. I didn't have to go to the bathroom. I just kind of sat down and prayed. And I'm just crying out to the Lord. I'm like, please, please, Daddy, please. Please don't let this be long and drawn out. Please don't let this be painful. Please, can you just Just quietly go. Just go into your arms, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so then I get back into the room and I'm by his side again, and then eventually, I look over at Sheena. I said, hey, sweetie, come on over on this side, And we were all taking turns. Everybody was respecting everybody's time with him. And so I stepped away for a minute. I had my back turned, just trying to pull myself together because I didn't want to be an absolute mess in front of the kids and his family, And then all of a sudden I hear Elena going, what's Daddy doing? Is he dying? Is he dying? So I spun around and I see Jose. Jose had lifted up his head. His eyes were wide open, and this is what he was doing. Now, mind you, my husband has turned his head before, like this, super, super slow, and only a few times. But now he is in the bed, and this is him. This was my husband. Looking at heaven. My husband was seeing heaven for like 2 or 3 minutes. This went on, maybe even longer. I don't know. I should have grabbed my camera. But his eyes were like, his mouth was wide open. He was like, whatever my husband was seeing was so glorious and so magnificent. It was like, and I've heard this told before, that even though they're dead, their spirit hasn't disconnected yet from their physical body. And all my husband was doing was just looking in awe and wonder at the splendor of heaven. And I remember just looking at him like, hey, baby, are you seeing heaven? He was not even there. And then we didn't even know he died. Elena's like, is he gone? Did he pass? Because normally when people die, their pupils get real big. His didn't. They stayed dilated. Because it was like he was seeing the brilliance of heaven. It was glorious, heartbreaking and sad, but glorious. I am so grateful that I got to witness my husband witnessing his home in heaven. I'm so looking forward to it. The splendor of it, the magnificence of it, the brilliance of it. I was reading to my grandchildren the layers. There's levels, there's floors in heaven. And every floor is a jewel, is a gem. Topaz, sardonyx, ruby, topaz, beryl. Can you imagine? Emerald. Like the whole floor, everything on that level. The streets are gold. There's no shadows. It says the glory of God gives the light in heaven. There's no need for the sun or the moon. It's always day. There's no sadness. There's no death. There's no sickness. There's no pain. There's no tears. Joy unspeakable. Joy and love. Can't wait. Can't wait to meet my husband there one day. Anyway, so that is how Jose passed into glory. And for that, I'm so grateful. So, so grateful. So if that's all you were interested in knowing, that's how he passed. But I felt led for the last couple of weeks to share our story, the story of our love and how we met and our time together. Nothing will ever compare. There are some of you out there, you've probably known Jose your whole life. I don't know that guy. The only Jose I know is the Jose that was with me for 5 years and then 2.5 years as a paraplegic with a traumatic brain injury. But those 5 years, So, Jose and I were introduced by our daughters. And it's funny because his daughter used to come over my house for years since she was a teenager. And I called her my daughter. Hey, hey, how's my daughter Sheena doing? And yada yada. And here and there, you'd hear the girls going, oh my gosh, can you imagine if your mom and my dad got together? Blah, blah, blah. You know, you don't pay attention to them. They're young. And it was funny because I was in a relationship and so was Jose. But these girls are like, could you imagine these two together? They'd be perfect, yada, yada. Anyway, so I guess the time came where I guess Jose was in between relationships. I had been single for probably 4 or 5 years. I was thinking to myself, like, I'm going to Africa and I'm going to be a missionary. That's what I wanted to do. But God had other plans. So my daughter Angela, I had made plans with my friend Brenda and my friend Kim to go out on a Friday night. We were going to go grab a movie and a bite to eat. And then my daughter Angela's just like, Mom, remember I was telling you about Sheena's dad, Jose? Well, he's playing at the White Elephant this Friday. Tell me you'll go. Please, 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 please go. And I'm like, Angela, I'm not meeting some guy in a bar. No. Jose's not like that, Mom. He's a good guy. He's not like that. Please, Mom, please, please, please come and see him. So I'm looking at my friend Brenda and Kim, who happened to both be there. I'm like, what do you think? Maybe after the movie, you guys want to like stop in at the White Elephant? They're like, yeah, sure, we could do that, you know. Well, Friday came around, I forgot. And my daughter Angela came up from the apartment. She's like, you're going to the White Elephant tonight, right? I'm like, she's like, no, Mom, please, please, please don't. You didn't forget, yada, yada. Anyway, long story short, I go to the White Elephant. I didn't let anybody know that I was there yet because I wanted to watch this guy. I'm like, I ain't going to be with some band playing, lead singing, guitar playing bozo guy who is a womanizer, you know. So I sat there and I watched him for a while before I even let anybody know I was there. And I was like, he's not looking around at anybody. He was just into his singing and playing guitar. Anyway, so eventually we get introduced during one of his little breaks, and he's like, hey, is there, you know, I just have to do one more set. We have to break down, but then, you know, maybe we can take a minute to talk. I'm like, sure. So anyway, I waited and I waited. Nobody knew where he went. And I didn't realize he was, you know, packing up the van and all the equipment. I didn't know. I was just like, I looked at my friend Brenda Kim. I'm like, let's get out of here. I'm like, I don't want to be here, you know. So as we're paying our bill, getting ready to leave, here comes Jose, you know, and he introduces himself. He and I step aside. We have a little cliche conversation. And long story short, he's like, I'll be in touch kind of thing. And I'm like, okay, bye, you know. That was it. The next day, my daughter Angela, was talking to me, and she's just like, so, what did you think of Jose? I said, well, he seems nice. I said, but honestly, Angela, I don't think he's into me. She's like, what? Why would you say that? I said, I'm a grown woman, Angela. I can tell if a man is into me or not. She goes, Mom, that's because you were always attracted to jerks, you know? And she's like, Jose is not like that. Jose is a good guy, you know, yada, yada. I'm like, whatever. So a couple weeks go by, and my daughter Angela was like, so did Jose call you for a date? And I said, nope. I said, I told you, Angela, he is not into me. She's like, what? What? No, Mom, hold on. I'm calling Sheena. So she calls up her friend Sheena. She's like, Sheena, how come your dad hasn't called my mom yet? You know, and she's like, oh, I'm sorry. We went to Puerto Rico on vacation to visit family. We just got back, yada, yada. I'll make sure my dad calls her, whatever. So he tries to call me when I'm at my job, and I wasn't able to take his call at the time. And then he texts me, and he's just like, hey, I was just trying to reach out. I'm hoping that I could take you out this Friday. I'm not sure what we're doing yet. It'll be a surprise kind of thing. I'm like, okay. So I'm thinking I'll call him, when I get a minute. But in my mind, this is when Jose started reading my mind. This is when Jose starts reading my mind. So in my mind, I'm thinking, I hope to God he doesn't want to just take me out for dinner and do like some boring date. I would love to go down to City Place, maybe listen to some music, maybe grab a bite to eat down there, walk around, yada, yada. Anyway, so I call him back. He's like, hey, sir, I had a minute to think, and I was wondering, how do you feel about going down to City Place, maybe catching a band or something, and then maybe we can grab a bite to eat down there. And I was like, oh, like, oh my gosh. I'm like, you read my mind, you know. So that was the beginning of the mind reading. And so our first date was we went downtown and we listened to some music. We took a trolley down to City Place. We grabbed some sushi, and anyway, so we had an amazing time. And so that was that. And then I think our second date, I'm trying to think our second date. I think our second date was a movie. And again, he's doing like mind reading stuff. And then our third date, I couldn't go out on a date, but he wanted, oh, and I remember our first date when we were heading out, like we're not even 2 blocks from my house. He says, so, he's like, so when I see you again, this, that, and the other. And I'm looking at him and I go, what do you mean see me again? Like, we haven't even had our first date. I go, you don't even know if you like me. I don't even know if I like you. And he just kind of looked at me, goes, we're going to have a second date. And I found out later, he had told me, he's like, he knew the day he met me that he wanted to be with me. I never knew that. And I think it was maybe our third date. Or it was the first time I went to his house, and he was out on the back porch, like strumming his guitar, you know, he had a couple drinks in him. And he just looked over at me and he goes, I'm going to marry you. I said, really? I said, how do you know if I'm going to marry you? He goes, you'll marry me. He goes, I'm going to marry you every day for the rest of my life. And I'm like, oh my God, save your schmoozing for somebody else. And I just started laughing, you know. And then I still hadn't held his hand, hadn't kissed him, haven't done anything with him. I didn't want to be with him unless I was married, and he knew that. Anyway, it was months. We tried to do the right thing. We tried to get married, and there were some personal things going on with a particular person who made it very difficult. And so he and I had to just entrust our relationship to God until God worked that situation out. And as soon as he did, we were married legally. But we were spiritually married before God prior to that. Anyway, we won't go there. You know, there's bozos in the world, like real, like literal bozos. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. So anyway, some of the mind reading things that Jose would do. So one time, he had gotten up in the middle of the night, like around 2 o'clock in the morning. And I've never in my life gotten up and I was thirsty and wanted water. Just, it never happened. But that particular night, I had kind of woken up a little bit and I was like, oh man, I'm so thirsty. But I don't feel like going and getting up out of bed and getting water. And all of a sudden, Jose comes back into bed and he's got water and he's like, hey, baby, I got you a water. I sat right up. I'm like, what? Oh my gosh, I was thinking that in my brain, yada, yada. Then the next time Jose, well, it happened all the time, but these are just some of the weird things that he would do. So then there was another time, like I was thinking in my brain, oh, I'd love to have steak and onions tonight. I'm like, I wonder what Jose wants for dinner. You know, I'm thinking in my brain. All of a sudden, Jose walks out of the kitchen and goes, hey, baby, I'm going to run to Publix. Do you mind if we just have steak and onions with mashed potatoes tonight? And I'm just like, so then it became a joke between us. I'm like, ooh, I got the power. I was like, baby, I can control you with my mind. So that was kind of our little inside joke. I think it was our fourth date. Just going back for a minute, our fourth date, we went out to eat at Two Georges, and on the way home, we just drove Ocean Boulevard with the windows down, singing songs as loud as we possibly could. Best date ever. Anyway, so it was months before I held his hand, months before I let him kiss me, like around that time, a few weeks later. And he would tell me later, he's like, I was afraid to touch you. I go, amen, you should be. I'm like, I kept myself for 4 years. I said, I ain't going to be with nobody unless God brings them. And we actually got prophesied over. Well, I did. I got prophesied over. This woman, anyway, calls me out. I'll have to read it one day. But she looked right at me. She goes, that man, that's your husband. That's the one that God chose for you. So anyway, I know God put us together. So here's the things I loved about my husband. I'm going to get personal now. My husband was not into pornography. My husband did not go to strip joints. My husband did not pleasure himself. It was all about me. My husband, I never one time caught Jose looking at another woman, commenting on another woman. It was all about me. I looked at him, I go, oh. If I noticed somebody was beautiful, I'm like, oh, what a beautiful lady. He would look at me and goes, you're beautiful. When I told him, when I started to gain weight because of my mesh issues, I said, baby, I'm so sorry I've gained so much weight. He just looked at me and goes, I love every part of you. It just gives me a little more to hold on to. I remember one time, I don't know if it was Valentine's Day or anniversary, whatever. I bought a little outfit, something cute, to celebrate. And I showed it to him when I came. I said, look what I got for tonight. And he looked at me and goes, for what? He said, why would you want to wear that? I said, I don't know. I thought you'd like it. He goes, no. He said, you don't have to dress up for me. I was like, yes. Then I remember another time, probably 2-3 years in, he always initiated. And I thought, man, I want to let my husband know that I'm just as much into him as he is into me. And I remember he was sitting on the back porch, and we were sitting like next to each other, just kind of chit-chat. But anyway, so I got up and I kind of sat on his lap and I grabbed his face gently and I just started kissing him. And he was like, what are you doing? I said, what? I go, you think you're the only one? I said, I got feelings. I said, I'm just as much into you as you are into me. He goes, yeah, but no. He said, please don't do that. That's the man's job. And he's right. Everything we see on TV and in these music videos and in TV, whatever, movies, the woman is like grabbing the guy, pushing him up against a wall and straddling him, and the world is backwards. And in my BCD days before Christ, I always felt like I had to dress up like something or perform a certain way in order to keep my man. You got to keep that part of the relationship alive. You need gizmos and gadgets and lotions and potions. And I never really did any of that because I was just like, if somebody doesn't love me and my body, they don't deserve me. If somebody needs to watch other people, like watch pornography to get off or to get aroused, to be with me, they don't deserve me. Anyway, I know Christian people that have done that and are doing that. Gizmos and gadgets and lotions and potions and outfits, and I'm only sharing all of this because I want you all to know that there is a level of love that is so pure and so genuine and so godly and so holy. If you and your husband would just submit yourselves to Jesus, you would experience that. Jose was not perfect, as many of you know. He was not perfect, but he was perfect for me. From the time I woke up, as soon as I came out, I was always doing stuff for him. His children and my children will tell you. I took care of my husband because I loved him, because he loved me. Because as soon as he got up, he said, you need anything? First thing, came around that corner, first thing I got, biggest hug you could ever imagine, bear hug, and lots of kisses and an I love you. Baby, you need anything? You need anything? Every time I went to the store, he told me, text me when you're leaving. Why? Because he would be waiting for me to bring everything in. He didn't want me doing anything. If he saw me trying to pick something up that was heavy, he's like, put that down. Put that down. Now, there were times where him and I had to do certain work where I had to do stuff. He hated it, though. He'd be like, baby, don't. I'm like, listen, let's get out of here, because we worked together, so I had to do certain stuff. But if he saw me trying to pick up a ladder and he was there, put that down, he'd be right over there. And I'm like, I'm trying to pull my weight. He said, nope. I miss that. And there was never a, that's your job, this is my job thing in the home. Even though I loved cleaning. Everybody knows who knows me knows I love cleaning. But he pretty much kind of took care of the garage and the outside, and I took care of the inside. However, if I needed help on the inside, you know that boy would put everything down and come help me if I asked. He adored me. And I remember my second or so date, I was with my friend Marta. I was together with Jose because of my friend Marta. I almost didn't date him anymore. She's like, so how are things going with Jose? I'm like, meh. I'm like, I don't know. I'm like, he doesn't own his own home. He's a painter. That's kind of hit and miss. She looked at me, she goes, are you kidding me, Marita? Since when are you so superficial? I said, I don't know, I'm just trying to do it different this time. She's like, she goes, do you see the way that man looks at you? She goes, that man is in love with you. I'm like, no, he's not. She's like, Marita, the next time you guys are together, you look at the way he's looking at you. I'm like, all right, and she was right. I loved the way Jose looked at me. It was like he saw inside my soul. I don't remember him and I ever arguing for the most part, like not screaming matches or anything, like disagreements about what we're going to eat for dinner or something silly, or about a personal issue that some of you are aware of. But it was never a knockdown, drag out fight or anything. He was so good to me, just so good to me. So gentle, but yet so strong. So kind, so affectionate. I did not lack for affection. And that man never one time, anytime he and I were together intimately, it was never like a wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. It was always meaningful. Always. There's not one time that it wasn't like ordained by God. It was so beautiful, our time together. We did everything together. If I said to him, baby, I'm going to Hobby Lobby's, or what? What? Where are you going? I'm going to go to Hobby Lobby. Without me? I'm like, you want to go to Hobby Lobby, sir? I want to do whatever you're doing. I'm like, okay. This was early in our relationship. When he would go to band practice, he's like, you're coming, right? I go, I can come? He's like, of course. I'm like, all right. I went to almost every single one of his band practices at his request and because I wanted to. And we both loved UFC. Another reason why I know God put us together. We both loved UFC. I had 3 brothers, so that explains that. But we did everything together. Everything. There were times his daughters were like, they wanted some alone time with daddy, and he'd come and goes, oh baby, I wish you could have been there with us. He's like, I hate being apart from you. And I him. A lot of women are just like, oh, I need some girl time. Not me. I needed some Jose time. We had a blast together. And he always held my hand. That boy never let go of my hand. We could be getting up at the same time in the house to go get a drink or whatever from the kitchen. He had to hold my hand. He just wanted to hold me. Not in a I'm so needy, I can't stop touching you thing. It was manly. It was like so debonair, He would just get up and take my hand. And if we were sitting together, because we sat right next to each other every night and watched UFC, if I would forget to reach over, he would just look at me and be like, hey. And he'd take my hand and put it right here, and then he'd kiss it and put it right here, and then he'd set it in his lap like, you're not going nowhere. But there was this strength about him, but yet he was the meekest, mildest, gentlest man I'd ever met. The hardest working. He was amazing. I wish I could have cloned him and just given him to every single woman I knew so they can experience that kind of love. That man would do anything for me, and he did. So when everybody says, you were such a good wife, you took such great care of him, I'm like, ooh, you have no idea how loved I was, how cared for I was. Caring for him was hard, but it was easy. It was hard physically, but mentally, it was easy. I'd do anything for him. So that's a once in a lifetime love right there. Anyway, I just wanted to share that with you all, especially those in Jose's band days, like when they played a lot. Maybe some of you didn't know that side of him. Maybe some of the bozo women that he was with didn't know how to appreciate that about him. I was the right woman for the right season of his life. And I'm so grateful to God that I got that time with him. It was short, too short, way too short. And yesterday was difficult because I picked up his phone for the first time in about a year and came across some of his progress videos. And I'm just tormented at just the things I witnessed and endured over the last 2.5 years in the healthcare system. And the abuse and the neglect of my husband just tears me apart. That's the hardest part. That a man so amazing endured such evil that he did not deserve. And one last thing. Back when I started nursing, it used to be like 99% of the nurses were good nurses, and you'd have that one, maybe two bad eggs. Now, it's the complete opposite. Like 90-something% of the nurses are evil, and you only get one or two that are like, that love their job and are there for the right reasons. And when the time is right, I'll make the change. I will be the change. I just need more time. I'm not ready yet. Anyway, so that's my love story with my baby. Hope you all appreciate it. And I hope those of you that listen that are single, I pray you find that. But you've got to be willing to wait for it. I went 4 years. 4 years. No dating. Nothing. Just chilling with Jesus. Anyway, all right. Have a great night or day, whenever you watch this. All right, bye.